Hi, and welcome back to the podcast, Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims. We're on bigcountryhomepage.com, and we are here with another very interesting person from Abilene. Do I even begin this way? Because I think Alana Jeter is going to have some really sad stories for us and some really challenging stories for us. But why start so glum, right?
Right.
Let's start with a cheerier.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me out, Danny. I appreciate it.
You are from the beautiful, scenic, lovely, almost mountain town of Clovis, New Mexico.
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. If you're looking for the exact opposite of the best sunsets and sunrises, because you can see for miles in Clovis. There's no trees or hills to get in your way.
But you go through Clovis on your way to the mountains.
You do. That's how most people know Clovis is. You drive through it on the way to the pretty part of the state or on your way to Colorado. As well as we have an Air Force base in Clovis as well. So people a lot of times know Cannon and think, oh, you've lived in Clovis and Abilene. Are you Air Force? And no.
And you're
no
not.
Connection. Yeah.
So I'm going to put you in a tough pickle right here at the start. Which Air Force town is more beautiful, Clovis or Abilene?
Oh.
Do we just say Abilene and move on?
We just say Abilene. Because even though it's Abilene, Kansas in the song, I do think, it could be the prettiest.
Abilene.
See? I'll let you sing.
Besides Clovis, the prettiest town I've ever
seen.
Okay, so you went to McMurry.
I did.
How did you get from Clovis to McMurry? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Methodist Church and McMurry. We had McMurry Sundays. We knew about McMurry growing up. My sister's 2 years older than me, and she went to McMurry, and it was the perfect fit for her. And so after my first year at the University of Denver, which was not a good fit, it was just a soft place to land because I knew I wanted to do college, but wasn't quite sure where else to go, and just immediately felt like home.
And in your career, well, let's talk quickly about your family.
Yeah.
You're married and you have kids. And I think one of your kids is at McMurry now.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's following in our footsteps.
So he's a war hawk.
He is a war hawk.
You were an
Indian. Indians. Yeah. Okay. And my husband is an Indian war hawk because I met him when we were both students. And then once we got married, he, worked. One of us had to while I finished school. And then he went back with the online program. And so he's an Indian war hawk.
So he started as an Indian in those days and finished as a war hawk in those days. I like that. There probably aren't a lot of those.
No, there's not. So he has that unique perspective on both sides.
It's fun. By the way, have you met the new president, Dr. Murray?
Yes.
Well,
she's
Lynn.
Dr. Murray.
Hold on a second. I'm getting a call from Lynn now.
No, she is fabulous.
Yes, she is, isn't she?
She really is.
Just yesterday on the podcast, we had the student body president, Garrison Shin, and we talked. He's a great guy, too. And there are a lot of wonderful people at McMurry. One of my favorites ever is Dr. Paul Fabrizio.
Yes.
Who doesn't love Dr. Paul? And, he's retiring.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's amazing. I don't know what we're going to do.
He's been there as long as I've known McMurray.
He has pledged to be the official political insider of the Abilene People podcast.
Oh, look at that.
And even if he hasn't really pledged it, now that I've said it, it kind of makes it so.
Now that you've said it out loud.
You've done a lot of work in the nonprofit space here in Abilene. You have worked with our homeless neighbors at Hope Haven. You have worked with socially, mentally, emotionally challenged people at BCFS. And now you are the executive director of NOAA Project.
Yeah.
That means you work with our neighbors who are victims of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking.
Sexual assault, human trafficking, domestic violence. So I guess we're right now, all of a sudden in the middle of when I said, you could probably have some sad stories for us. I want to, before we talk about the work of NOAA Project, I just kind of want to get into your heart and head and ask what motivated you or motivates you to work with homeless persons, emotionally challenged persons, mentally challenged persons, and victims of this kind of horrific thing that happens in our world. Why are you motivated to work in those spaces with those people?
Sure. Well, BCFS, I mainly worked with our youth who are aging out of foster care. And those programs. And we built the second Our House when I was there. We did the capital campaign and built the women's Our House, which is serving homeless youth that are 18 to 22, because that is such an unmet need. And I think that's truly where my heart is in our community, not programs that are looking to recreate the wheel, but really where those unmet pockets of need are. And so 2 years ago, when the executive director was retiring from NOAA Project,
Great
it
guy.
popped up. Great guy.
Great guy.
Saw him last week. He's fabulous. That it was, I see where I could make an impact here with a local organization who has such a strong 46-year history of serving our neighbors when they need it most.
And I'm trying to think of the best way to word this question. So if I say it awkwardly, just help me out.
Sure.
Doesn't it get depressing?
That's one of the hardest things about the job that our victim advocates and our crisis line advocates who are on the front lines every day is that secondary trauma or fatigue from emotionally experiencing what people are seeing the very worst of our neighbors, of our friends, but we also see the very best. And that's one of the things about NOAA Project that we don't get to share is every one of those stories, because we are protecting everyone's privacy so much, which is great, which is exactly what we need to be doing. But there are stories of triumph every day. We had a new baby come home from the hospital this week. And so just that chance for a fresh start that new life has of stopping the cycle of violence, stopping the cycle of abuse in their family, and having that opportunity for a safe place to start is an amazing thing to be part of.
And I know that confidentiality is a
Mhm.
huge part of your world. And in the podcast, you're not going to come close to breaking any confidentiality agreements or ethos in the world you operate. But I want to ask you this, how, generally speaking, how many people do you see on an average week, or if you'd prefer to describe it in an average month, how many people do you see who are victims of those three, big areas you talked about: domestic violence, sex trafficking, sexual abuse?
Right now, we have 72 people staying in our shelter, 72 neighbors who need a safe place to land, from that brand newborn to senior citizens. We serve men and women with and without children, as well as unaccompanied youth. And throughout this year, we have served 16, 17-year-olds that needed a place to call home. And we serve about 1,000 people a year.
And Alana, do they call you direct, or does law enforcement call you on their behalf? How does that work?
Both. We have a great working relationship with APD and our Taylor County Sheriff's Department. With APD specifically, we have a LAP agreement or a protocol that we both work on, and that's a lethality assessment protocol. And so it's the worst case scenarios when they arrive at a domestic violence scene. Whether the person is interested in our services or not, officers call us. They look for things like strangulation, firearms in the home, and those elevate the chance of this situation becoming lethal. And so about half the time, someone wants to speak with us or schedule an appointment, and about half the time they don't, but the officer's recording it. So we have this information, so we know if that person calls us, we will automatically put them in shelter.
You used a little phrase there I want you to explain for us. It heightens the likelihood that the situation will become lethal. Lethal. I didn't want to just hop out with lethal, because I thought that's what you might have said. So lethal, meaning that if there's a chance of somebody killing somebody, there really heightens the tension and the need to engage you and your team at NOAA Project.
Absolutely. And just a few weeks ago, the Texas Council on Family Violence released the 2024 statistics. We lost 161 Texans to intimate partner violence in 2024. 2 of those in Taylor County.
And that happened last year.
2024, which is absolutely devastating. And the 2 people in Taylor County, we had never heard their name. So that's the worst case scenario if someone didn't know there was a lifeline at NOAA Project. That either an officer can call us, an individual can call us, you can show up at our gate, use our intercom.
And you're located in a well-known facility that's secure, and I'm assuming it's okay to say exactly where that is over here on Texas Avenue on the southwest side of Abilene.
5802 Texas Avenue.
Somebody can come there anytime 24/7 and ring an intercom and say, hey, I need help.
Absolutely.
And Travis will put it down in the lower CGs in the podcast, but what's your website address?
Yeah, it is noaaproject.org.
And people can look you up and call you.
You can call us or you can submit a crisis help response right from that website. We know that it may not be safe for you to use the phone. You may not have access to a phone in a private location. And if your abuser or offender is right in that room, you can send us an email, let us know the best way to contact you. We can arrange for, we do taxi pickups for individuals who need a place to escape. We're there no matter what time of day, Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, all of the above. We have staff working for that purpose to serve our neighbors and let people know that there is someone who believes them, who can help, and who's there.
So I'm watching a video the other day, and I'm struck by what he said. It's actually the former famous Heisman-winning football player, Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow has a foundation, and he works in that foundation with sex trafficking victims and is really becoming, I think, pretty big. A big emphasis of his foundation is to stop sex trafficking and to make a difference. He says, and I think I've got this quote exactly right.
Okay.
Talking about those in the United States of America. We're not talking about some country in Asia where bad things happen and people get trafficked and brought to it. No. These are people in America perpetrating crimes against young people. He says, it's those in the trusted circle. Child sexual abuse, it's off the charts. What's being done in the family? He says the number one offender is biological fathers. Does that surprise you? Is that consistent with what you see?
It unfortunately doesn't surprise me. That's one of the questions we get is when did we go into serving those who were trafficked and not just that intimate partner violence that we began with? And it's because it's the same people. A lot of times they're co-occurring that mom or dad is sex trafficking or human trafficking that child to buy milk, to pay rent, a night in a hotel room if I can be alone with your daughter. Those situations happen. And so that's the kind of trafficking we see here in Abilene, not the white van stranger, although we do see some of those, but it's much more common, that familiar where it's an automatic CPS call and let's get this family some support because it is the family who is the perpetrator.
We're going to revisit something you just said. You just said to pay the bills, maybe there's a dire situation. You're in essence, I don't think you said these words, but I think what I heard you saying is there are people who will make their child available to somebody knowing that terrible things will happen, sexual things will happen to that child in exchange for money.
Yeah. And that's what Tim's referring to, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not trying to be naive here.
Yeah.
I'm just stunned because that's one of those horrible things when you want to think about. And does that happen here in Abilene, Texas?
We have had that happen at NOAA Project this year of people with a child and that exact scenario happening, and that's why they needed us.
So in this same interview, I'm just stunned.
It is absolutely heartbreaking. the people who are supposed to protect these young children are not just in CPS cases that you think of, physical abuse or neglect, but actually trafficking their own children.
Tim Tebow has something he calls the red dot map, and he holds it up, and it's just a picture of the U.S., the contiguous 48. Did I say that right? Contiguous 48? Continuous 48? The lower 48?
Yeah, the lower 48.
The U.S. without Hawaii and Alaska. How about that?
Hey.
Yeah. And he says, well, on this map, it's a 30-day window of individual known IP addresses selling or accessing sexually graphic material, very often of abuse and sometimes child rape. And he said, these are only instances of children 12 years old and younger. Man. And he says, it's a 30-day window.
Yeah.
And these little hits, IP hits, there's 111,000 of them in the U.S. Now, if you visualize the 48 states, you can think, okay, well, where would these be? Well, of course, they're going to be up and down each coastline because that's where a bunch of liberal nut people live, right? That's where they're going to be.
Spots.
Yeah, those hot spots. And there's plenty of them. But the whole nation is unfortunately sad to me and sickening. The whole nation is pretty much red. Man. But the concentration of red dots in the map I saw is the Bible Belt. And the reason I bring that up is, as someone trained and someone who, I'm talking about myself, worked as a member of the clergy for 25 plus years, I certainly saw a lot of messed up people. Well, yeah, all God's children's got issues and problems. But boy, we don't want to look in the mirror, do we?
No.
And you're talking about Abilene, Texas. You just said that here in Abilene, you have seen a case recently where people rented out their kid.
And, the child porn and the pornography, and I'm not an expert at all in that, but those are the cases that we see of trafficking. It's unique, but we have some other trafficking cases where it's the movie kind of situation that you think of someone's in found in a hotel room, doesn't know how they got there, they're coming from another state, that we've housed in NOAA project. But most of the cases of trafficking we see are that familiar. Usually drugs are involved, and sometimes it is for drugs, but it happens, and it's one of the reasons we're there, to have that safe place for that child and the non-offending parent to call home,
and
or just the parent.
Are the majority of the victims women and children? And is it fair to say a majority of the perpetrators are men, or is that stereotypical?
So yes and no. The statistics are 1 in 3 women in their lifetime are affected by intimate partner violence, and 1 in 5 men. But we know that especially men's numbers are vastly underreported.
Does it make you, we're just here on a podcast, I guess, in that context, but the way I would say it is, does it make you crazy when people say things like, oh, come on, it's not 1 in 3, there's no way? Does it make you a little?
It does. It does, because it really, people aren't making up these figures. We're not trying.
But people dismiss it all the time.
People
and
do.
Look at the world we live in.
People do.
I don't know when somebody's going to watch or listen to this podcast, but the world we live in right now, there are leaders in our world who are referring to sworn affidavit statements submitted in a court of law where someone was convicted of sex trafficking in a very well-known national case, and they're calling it a hoax. They're saying that it's a political ploy.
And there's no list and all the things. Yeah.
And so, okay, remember a few years ago in the Academy Awards when Will Smith walked up and slapped Chris Rock?
Who could forget it? Yeah.
Okay. So my wife teaches middle school here in AISD, one of our middle schools, and she showed me the day after a genius quote from one of her assistant principals. It was just gold. And it was something along the lines of this: "Thank you, Will Smith. You just made my job as an assistant principal for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that much more difficult." And of course, what she meant was young boys see that and then they think there's permission to go slapping people.
Yeah, they want to emulate Will Smith, so he just gave him permission on a national stage that's acceptable.
So I want to extrapolate that and come to what I was just talking about with our national leaders calling things a hoax. We're giving permission to dismiss, look the other way, ignore it, even when there's a conviction involved. What the hell is happening?
Oh, we live in a broken world. I mean, that's it. I haven't come up against, with this case specifically, people not believing our statistics, because we're serving those people every day. We are serving 67% more people than we ever have this year.
But see, Alana, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I just want to say, I think talking to you personally, it would be very difficult for somebody to say, "Oh, that's not true. It's a hoax." They want to say that out in the public space because who's going to challenge them there, right?
Sure.
But that's the problem.
That's the problem.
We're creating this permission culture in public space, and we used to blame it on. We used to blame violence or as Robert Bork said in his famous book, Slouching Toward Gomorrah, the slide of our culture on things like rap music or video games. I don't think we have to look to rap music or video games these days. We're giving permission right out in front. We're saying the quiet parts out loud. And I want to know what you're doing to fix it.
Yeah. Well, let me solve all the world's problems here from my small nonprofit in Abilene, Texas. But I think that is having these conversations is the first step of putting it out there of this is actually happening in our communities. And the scary thing is these are already vastly underreported crimes. These things that we've been talking about are the things that people have in the darkest corners of their world and are not things that already have the light brought to them. And so it is very scary that if we're dismissing it on a national stage, then does that mean kids are not going to report it? Teenagers, young adults who see that it's dismissed.
And are you asking that as a rhetorical device?
Yeah, that's just rhetorical. Or do you have the answer? Yeah.
I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I have an opinion. But hell yeah.
I think they are.
I think they are.
And it's already underreported so vastly that that's so scary for our future. And that's exactly how we are still having, here in Texas, people dying at the hands of someone who should be protecting them at their intimate partner.
Remember many years ago, and I say many because I was a young man then, so it's many years
many.
ago.
Just the other day.
Just the other day. No, it's a long time. The conversation about when women would say no means no, right? And there was even a well-known country western song about, no means yes, and there was tremendous backlash to that song. Sung, by the way, by a lady who went to Abilene Christian University, if I have my details right.
Oh.
I think so. But I digress.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. But no, we said, the word no means no. And young men need to be taught. When a young woman says no, you can't keep advancing on her aggressively in a what's the word I'm looking for? In a way where a young man just wants to do whatever a young man wants to do. Yeah. And if a woman says no, that's it. Our culture used to stop there. Yeah. We're way past that. Way past that. And you're working in a space where you see this. You see it every day, but you see it all the time.
Yeah.
It's got kind of circling back to where we start. It's got to break your heart. It's got to frustrate you. It's got to make you crazy. And I think it's behooving on, if you go back to Tim Tebow's red dot map, if it's behooving on everybody that would never have a red dot on their computer, it's behooving on those people to speak out into this and say, No, it's just wrong. It's not right. And those of you who are in our churches and our schools who are participating in this kind of deviant behavior, we want you to know that you will be adjudicated to the full extent of the law if and when you are caught. And we're going to create structures where you will be caught. And we're going to create a culture where it will not be tolerated. What else can we do?
Well, I think we can do what we're doing right now of our teams at NOAA Project that are out in the schools every day, teaching kids about consent, reminding them about consent. I think our primary prevention department gets overlooked on what they do and think it's just teaching people how to have healthy relationships, just teaching these basic skills on how to be a decent human being. But it's not uncommon for those kids to go home and tell their parents, I learned there's a safe place for you to go. Let's go. And for a kid to show up at a place like NOAA Project at our gates with what they picked up at school today. And so I think that, we have a small team in a 10-county area in rural West Texas, but I think that's it. I think it's on both sides of see the law enforcement and have those outside influences on those kids, telling them, reminding them, whether they're pre-K or college students, that I don't know what examples you've seen before. I don't know what you've seen in the media, but these are the levels of consent. No does mean no. You do need to get consent. And we don't ever raise a fist, but on the violent side, but on the sexual assault side and rape and everything that goes on that side, we have got to be constantly all working together to remind our kids that you're right. No does mean no.
And so you guys working with young people have cases, examples, times where a young kid will say, theoretically, to a mom, I want you to look at this brochure I picked up at school. How simultaneously burdening and unburdening that is, you know?
Same time. It is.
Man.
It's heartbreaking to me as a parent, but yet we brought hope into that household through the kid. Yeah.
Do you see in those instances, occasionally at least, change? And you see people who have an intervention and they say, man, I got to get my life right.
We absolutely do. The national statistics are it takes 7 times for someone to leave an abusive relationship because of that power and control. So it's not uncommon for someone to come to NOAA Project, go back, come to NOAA Project, go back. But when we have the opportunity for someone to start their life over, and those are the amazing stories that we want to share of the number of people that we've helped with rental assistance this year to get into their first apartment for the first time because they broke that cycle and are standing up to break that cycle for their children.
And somebody's listening to this and thinking, oh, I don't even want to admit it, but that's me, or that's my daughter, or that's my in-laws. They, again, can access, Travis will put it all back on the bottom of the screen here in CGs. They can access this kind of resource and this kind of help. You're there 24/7. Holidays are coming up as we record this. Holidays are high-stress times.
They are.
You're going to see an uptick, I would assume, in your services.
Every time.
I got just a couple of more questions that I want to talk about in the conversation. But before we leave this, and I guess at one level it's kind of funny the way I'm going to word it.
Okay.
But it's not. And we can chuckle. I'm already chuckling. But why are men such jerks? What is up with the male psyche in America today?
You know,
because this is not the case all around the world.
It is not.
It's not. There are cultures where men behave.
There are cultures, but we also see something we haven't talked about is our immigrant population and us having the IRC here. And sometimes we have individuals who got arrested for doing something they would have done in their home country that was not offensive. But here in America, we have at least the laws in place that you can't hit your wife just because she's your wife and dinner wasn't ready at 5:02. and things of that nature. But yeah, we're flawed human beings here in the grand USA as well. And women are not perfect. Women are making those mistakes too. But I do see across the country there is definitely a failure somewhere in that white male middle class
Well, that was
leadership.
another thing Tim Tebow in his video alluded to, and I keep talking about it as a third person. He's, but it was just really enriching to me. And it was enriching to me to see somebody who's kind of been an icon of conservative Christianity speaking out in that world to those people, saying we got to do better. And he referred to it's middle class white America. That's where this is happening.
That's where it's happening. And that's something I think that people don't understand when we talked about that. If you're listening to this and you hear, and this looks like your relationship, what we're most known for is our shelter at Noah Project. But we have outreach clients we see every single day that have a safe place to call home, that just need someone to walk with them on their next steps, whether they need our counseling program, whether they need some legal advocacy, whatever that is. And so we every year see large numbers of people that have a safe place to call home. And the people that need our shelter are those that are at the intersection of poverty and domestic violence. But there is absolutely no income limits on who is causing this harm and who is a victim of this harm every day. That's at our luncheon we had in October. Our survivor that we had telling her story, she has a podcast of her own called The Dirty John Story, or Surviving Dirty John, and she was targeted because she was affluent and didn't realize what power and control and emotional she got wrapped up in until it was too late. And then ultimately, after she left, and she had resources to leave, she had resources to go to her home in another state, things that people we see at No Project don't necessarily have, but things that our outreach clients have. And so there are absolutely no stigma to calling us for help, whether you're a well-known name in town or you are just getting by. We're there to serve everyone.
Well, you very artfully did not embrace the answer to the question.
Did I avoid that well enough? Yeah.
Well, but you started a while ago just by saying we live in a broken world.
We do.
And it's a bit of a punchline, but I would assume you would be the first with open arms to help a man who says, "Yeah, I need help."
Okay.
And I'm sure you see it.
We do. We have men in our shelter right now.
Yeah. Okay. Last Noah Project question before we land this. And if it's okay if it revisits something, but I just thought in terms of summary, what are two things? If you get in the elevator with somebody and say, "What do you do?"
Yeah.
You have 15 floors going up, which that limits the buildings in Abilene to 2.
I know. I'm good at the Enterprise building.
So maybe you're in the Metroplex and you got 42 floors to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have just a couple of things you're going to share. What are the two things you tell people about Noah Project?
Are the numbers of people we serve, absolutely. That we are serving an average of between 60 and 80 people every single night here in Abilene, Texas. And we are that unmet need. We're providing everything that someone needs while they're there. Thankfully, we've picked up coats from the Jackets to Joy campaign the Year Station did. We'll have toys from Santa's Helpers to have a fabulous Christmas for our kiddos. But every single thing is provided at no cost for those who need to call Noah Project home. And then I always like to share a story or two, even though I can't tell names. And my favorite story to share is exactly where my office is right by the front door. And so I get to hear a lot of people come in, even if I don't see their face or get to know them personally. And not too long ago, I heard a little boy's voice say, "Mom, are we going to be safe here?" And she replied, and he said, "But no, Daddy just got out of prison. Are we going to be safe?" And that just absolutely brought tears to my eyes. It is the most common story that I tell, because if it wasn't for the Abilene community, we wouldn't be able to say yes. Here in Abilene, there is a place that little boy and every little boy who needs it, every girl, every mom, dad, can be safe. Because that's the first step to starting over and breaking the cycle, is to let someone be safe so they can breathe again and not have that worry and concern as they start over.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned the bigcountryhomepage.com Jackets for Joy campaign, which is wrapped up, but still we're still getting coats coming in, and Noah Project, along with several other nonprofit agencies in town, take those coats and give them to people just like the people you've described. Yeah. Maybe that little boy and his mom left home literally with nothing. They fled. That's probably a very common scenario.
Very common.
So they need a coat. They need help. People want to make donations. They can make donations at your website.
Absolutely.
They can support your events. Mm-hmm. And if they want to donate certain things, they could call, because you have a big storage facility now that's available to you. That's good. That's good
we
news.
do.
That's,
very recently, which is wonderful.
So they could call and say, hey, I've got this. Do you need it? That kind of thing. So you're in the trenches. You're right out there on the, I don't know, whatever metaphor, front line. You're doing this work. You see it every day. I want you to back away as we end from Noah Project. You've lived in two beautiful cities, Abilene and Colorado Springs. You mentioned Colorado Springs outside the interview. I mean Clovis.
Yeah, well, Clovis, Colorado Springs, same beautiful frontier.
And I'm assuming you're a proud Abilenian. You love Abilene, and
I do.
What do you want to see in Abilene in the next 10 or 20 years? And you can answer that question however you want. One time I asked that question, and somebody immediately said Super Target, which I thought was funny, but that wouldn't be bad.
But true. You bring that up. A second HEB would be, fabulous.
Off camera, one guy told me, I'd really like to see a Specs Liquor. And I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's better than Super Target. But what would you like to see in Abilene? Again, it can be anything. Eradication of potholes. People that learn how to drive. Anything. Anything. Oh. I'm not trying to bait you up on what you should say.
I was going to say, you are giving so many great examples of things we need in Abilene. I think Abilene's unique in that it is the biggest small town. And those personal connections are what makes it unique. And I love when, obviously I'm passionate about the nonprofit sector. I have been involved in Abilene and throughout my career, and seeing that the support that we all have for each other is something I would love to see grow to where no one doesn't know about us. I think that's my biggest thing, is there are so many resources in Abilene for someone who needs help or for someone who wants to enjoy arts and culture. We have so many arts and culture resources as well, that every person coming into town, whether they're coming into town for a building project or relocating their whole family here, that they know about the great nonprofit sector here in Abilene and what makes us special with it.
I was thinking earlier, the intersection of all the nonprofits in Abilene is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
It really is. And I was wondering if you ever talked to Kayla at the Nickel, and if they ever help out in any way. I'm sure that they've got books and stuff, and all that kind of stuff probably happens in the back where, nobody knows it's even happening. It's a lot of goodness in Abilene. We've talked a lot of some sad things. Little boy asked his mom, "We going to be safe?"
Yeah.
But Abilene's a place where there's a lot of lights too, a lot of bright lights.
There is, absolutely. And we work great with nonprofits in our same sector, which is what I usually talk about, the referrals for our clients. But when the Nickel has a free event our child advocate is taking groups over there. Every year we get tickets to the CAF festival and are able to take our kids there, which is just absolutely, I'm recently on the committee for that and love that festival. And so getting to see our kids get to experience arts and literature, there's a lot to be said for arts opening a broader worldview and things our kids, if they weren't at NOAA, may have not been able to experience. But because we work so well together, those intersections happen, and
Well, and
it's so much fun.
you're a place where, speaking of a child,
Yeah.
the child's life can take a break and get to do some of the things that during the chaos and the drama and the violence they're not going to get to do.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. That's one of my board members the other day told us that someone that works at his facility told him they lived at NOAA Project as a kid and they remember it being so fun with our playground and our facility on Texas Avenue. One of our current NOAA Project board members lived at NOAA Project as a kid when we were on Grape Street. And her memories of NOAA Project are the playroom upstairs. And so I love that the kids take away from the most chaotic experience in their lives when their entire world is turned upside down, those bright lights that we can plant those seeds of love and safety in a way that they have fond memories of.
Alana Jeter, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny.
Really appreciate you. All you do, you've got a wonderful team.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful team.
Do incredible work. And it's really been eye-opening. And I hope that this conversation gets traction and people take time to listen. You know, when people hear conversations about difficult topics, sometimes they just decide, I'd rather not. Mm-hmm. This is one that ends up in a pretty good place because it gives you hope. And the work you're doing, gives us hope. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. I appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us here on the podcast. I'm your host, Danny Sims. But before we end, I want to give a shout out to the man behind the machine over there doing all the work, Travis Corrigan, our ace producer, making it work because he is TC. I call him TCB because he's taking care of business. And you take care of business and you come back next time where I guarantee you, we'll have another interesting person from Abilene on Abilene People. Again, thank you, Alana Jeter, Executive Director of NOAA Project. Please join us next time right here on BigCountryHomepage.com. Again, I'm your host, Danny Sims. Thank you for joining us.